than actual expenses. So some school districts that did not pass this indicator did not have a healthy reserve of 60 days of cash on hand, and that's relating back to the fund balances that we have in our portfolio. Number 10, indicators, is asking kind of a similar question. Did we have enough debt service fund balance to meet our debt? And we do. And we did. In 2014-15, we did pass that. So that just means we're able to make our mortgage payment, i.e. our loan payments or for our bonds. The most complicated slide in my presentation has to be about calculating administrative cost ratio. And what this is the state is actually looking to see how well we, or how efficient we are in providing instructional services to our students. So this has actually taken our functions 21, which is instructional leadership, and function 41 out of our general fund, and dividing that by functions 11, functions 12, 13, and 31, which includes all of our payroll costs, our contracted services, our 6300s, our general supplies, and our 6400s. And it's an indicator to see how top-heavy we might be, a district might be, or how inefficient are the efficiencies related back to instructional cost. And so this indicator it also is based on our ADA. So our ADA in 2014 and 15 was roughly 12,552 students, and the threshold in order to get all 10 points, our indirect administrative cost ratio would have had to be less than 0.008. So it was a little bit higher, so that's where we didn't gain the whole 10 points. So out of that score of 100, the 98, I'm not going to say got dinged on it, but that is where we lost just the 2 points, but still within very superior ratings. Number 12, did the school district not have a 15% decline in student to staff? This means that our enrollment did not drop, so we received the full 10 points. Indicator number 13, did our PEIMS data that we submit have a variance greater than 3% of all expenditures through our audit? And this one we will never be perfect due to rounding. Our PEIMS data that's submitted to the state and our financials is dollar per dollar, yet our audit report is rounded to whole dollar. So our variance was less than 0.25%. So we received the full points for that indicator. Indicator number 14, did our audit for 2014 and 15 indicate any misappropriating of funds, any non-compliance? Was it a clean audit? And ours was. We had no material weaknesses in our audit or in our procedure, so we received a perfect score on that indicator. And then the last indicator, did we as a district receive, did we not receive a repayment plan? And what this just means is, were our books, was there an instance where we would have had to pay TEA back and have to get a payment plan in order to repay funds? And we did not, so we received a perfect score on that indicator. The remaining part of my presentation is the legal requirements of the disclosures, and part of the legal requirement is to disclose the superintendent's employment contract that, as the board, was agreed upon and voted on. And so I couldn't get it all on one screen, so I'm going to force forward with this. indicating that y'all signed the employment contract with Dr. Verstov back in August 5th of 2015. And within that, we abided by that contract to give raises accordingly. So that we legally have to disclose. The next one is reimbursements received by the superintendent that we need to disclose, and this would be any types of meal, lodging, transportation, cost, administrative costs, be it phones, devices that we need to disclose that he did receive or was reimbursed for by the school district. And so Dr. Verstov got to go first in the presentation, and then the next slide will be for each board member. So we do need to disclose this to be transparent. This will go on our website, and I have the breakdown. So we just, by law, have to disclose what reimbursements for meal, lodging, any type of reimbursements for transportation, and so that is that disclosure. The next one is, for this period, did Dr. Verstov receive any outside payments for professional consulting or personal services? And that was zero. The same thing with each board member. We have to disclose if you had received a gift in the amount of $250 or more, and each one of y'all, that is the zero as well. We need to disclose if there was any business transactions between board members and the school district, and for this 12-month period ending August 31st, 2015 was zero as well. And then one of the last disclosures is we have to, the data that I'm presenting actually goes from 2014 to 2015. So the first quarter of the fiscal year of 2015 and 16, we have to disclose the first 3 months of operating expenses out of our general fund. And all of these were in very normal ranges. Where school districts get in trouble or try to skew the data is if at the end of the fiscal year we rearrange or reclass funds, and then in the next first quarter of the following year, the true colors of what's spent is actually shown, and we are right on very consistent to the previous years where it's in normal ranges. So we're not bypassing any budget processes or reclassing funds to skew the data. We did very well with that. And then a comparison is that first slide, the previous slide I showed the variances. Well, when we have our audit, they look at the same criteria since it's independent, and their disclosures that this slide actually comes from our audit report from 2014 and 15. It matches to what we're reporting in our data. So there's not a mismatch in our data. And that is it. Does anyone have any questions, concerns, comments?
It's a public hearing. Does anybody have any questions at all?
Did we get a copy of that in our board book, or
This was for a public hearing. We didn't have a board book, but we can get you copies. And then we're going to have it it'll be posted on the website. Okay.
Go over what those 2 points were that we lost.
Yes, that is just on the,
Just tell us, don't worry about it.
the administrative cost ratio. We missed it by a fraction of a couple of points, and it's based on our ADA. So the state uses a threshold of ADA of 10,000 or more, and so our functions 21 and 41 for our leadership divided by direct instructional just didn't meet that range that the state said by very few basis points.
Okay,
Thank you. Again, are there any comments, questions from the audience? If not, that was an excellent job. Thank you, ma'am.
There's a lot of them.
A little yellow jacket don't hurt anybody.
It's just that if the wall's full.
It's not the one that.
It looks like they're trying to spend the winter there.
Great job. Great job, Donna.
Thank you.
Thank you, Donna. Good job. Without the chanclas.
Thomas.
Is everybody ready to start the second one?
Yep.
All right, meeting will come to order, and it's 11:35. And the first thing on the agenda is the pledge.
I'd like to ask Jan Hernandez to please lead us in rotation.
I still got 4 of them up there.
How about your no-carb thing working, okay?
Can you?
I'll do it. Dr. Meyer will lead us in education. Father, thank you for this morning, Father. Thank you for the opportunity that you've given us to serve our community and the students of Southwest Independent School District. Father, we pray that you give us wisdom and knowledge and courage to do the things and to make the hard decisions that are going to come before us. Father, we pray for the safety of our students and our employees. And Father, we just pray that this school district will do your will and help these kids to become good citizens of this country. Father, we just pray that you forgive us when we do fail you. And we pray these things in Jesus' name.
Amen.
All right.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Under the Texas flag, I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Thank you. All right. This time, we're going to go ahead and go into executive session, and people in the audience, if you'd go ahead and get your lunch while we're in there, and then we'll come out and proceed from there. Under Texas Government Code 551.001-551.146, we go into executive session. All right, we come back into regular session, and it's 12:15. And first item we'll do is item 5, consider approval of the superintendent's recommendation on personnel.
I move we approve the superintendent's recommendation on personnel. Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carried. Item 3, district hearing officer.
That would be my part.
Yes, ma'am.
So prior to today, we discovered that with some absences that were coming up, that we needed some additional people named to serve as district hearing officers. And there's a certain criteria after visiting with the superintendent. You have to be working for us. And so you can see on your handout the ones that we named. We added, before we just had Jason and Patty. And so we added, you'll notice that we added me, we added JJ, he's another one who's qualified, and so is Adrienne Martinez. So we just need your approval in that.
All right, do we have any questions?
No.
I need a motion.
I move. Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carried. On items of information, transition plan.
Before we move there, Mr. President, we
Yes, sir.
introductions of some of the personnel rules that the board just took. Is that okay with you?
I'm sorry. Yes, sir. We should have.
I would like to do it, but I'm going to turn it over to our Director of Fine Arts to do his 2 introductions, followed by our Director of Athletics, Peter Wagner, to do his introduction of new folks in the areas.
I would like to take this opportunity to recognize Ms. Amanda Ballarin, who will become our Legacy High School band director and continue as district band facilitator. And if she's going over to Legacy, then Miss Natalie Ball will be named as the head high school band director for Southwest High School. And both of those appointments will be taking place at the change of semester, January. I'm very excited to announce that Coach John Tarvin will be our next athletic coordinator and head football coach at Legacy High School. We're forming.
These are three critical leadership positions in our district as we get ready to transition to a two high school system. Very proud of these folks who have elevated through the Southwest ISD system. I know the board, they said they're so excited and they're ready for their 10-0 season. Coach Tarvin.
He does sign that in blood.
We're very excited for you guys and very happy for you. Congratulations.
Needs her for?
Now we're ready to move on to item presentation, sir.
All right, the transition plan.
So today we have with us a group of people that will actually be doing a presentation on something that is new to all of us because we don't open a high school, thank God, as we're learning more than once in every 65 years. And so we have the principal from Legacy High School that's actually going to be beginning the presentation, and other people will be chiming in throughout. So thank you, Anita.
Good afternoon. So, congratulations. Back in September, we were tasked with, by our superintendent to put a committee of transition, committee together, transition from Southwest High to Southwest Legacy. So we started meeting, and as he brought up different topics and different conversations, people started joining. So as you can see up here, this is the committee. We've had a lot of conversation, a lot of talk since September. And so every time we meet, there's something new as we want to make this transition as smooth as possible, not only for our students, but our community and also our staff members. So there's several of us that have been tasked with sharing some information, how things are going, what we've been doing, and what has taken place from September to this point, and what's going to continue as we make the transition to Southwest Legacy High School. And I want to thank all these people in the community that have been very, very kind in helping and ideas and sharing. Obviously, Mr. Black, Mr. Jimenez, very instrumental, assisting me in making things a lot easier for me to transition into this position. Thank you. And now we have Mr. Cesar here.
Good afternoon, everyone. As Mr. was mentioning, this is a great committee where all of us have been putting our minds together and through conversation, we've been very strategic in planning that transition from Southwest High School to Legacy. And so the top portion of this slide will show some of the individual campus CTE pathways that will be at both campuses. And then we have some common CTE pathways that will be at both campuses. These programs will be duplicated at both high schools. And the bottom portion will be pretty much the common non-CTE pathways, which include the fine arts and arts and crafts. On the second slide, we have, so pretty much to sum up our pathways, we made sure that all 5 endorsements are aligned. Our programs are pretty much that our programs, our CTE programs and non-CTE programs are both aligned at both high schools, and we made sure that all 5 endorsements are being offered at both high schools, right? And which are the STEM, the System Industry and Public Services, the bottom is the Career and Technology Department, and the Arts and Humanities and Public Experiences.
And if you can see, and you also on your folder, you have a scan or just a sheet with a copy of the side-by-side, and you will see that there are a couple of differences there. So that is why that brings us to this next slide, which is the transfers. And what we're looking at, basically, we have most of our students in the 10th grade, or our students in where the bulk of our focus is, because since we opened Legacy now from 9th through 11th, that's the group that was actually affected a little, because when we were working, as far as the guidance team was working on doing their 4-year plan, individual plans, we were making sure 9th and 10th grade at that time were correct, or the 9th graders. The 10th grade ones were the ones that, because they were not gonna be affected in the move, we left a lot of them set on their pathway. We didn't have a conversation with them in regards to your pathway will not necessarily be offered. And so that is why the transfers are here. We have a form, and you have a copy of the transfer form that will be completed by the students and the parents in regards to if a student is currently a Southwest High School student and his or her pathway is going to be only offered at Legacy, then of course that is where there's a need or a request to be transferred over to the school that has their pathway. We're currently right now meeting with all the students one-on-one, and so for the feedback that I've gotten just as late as yesterday, there's not a lot of students that have requested that as of now, and so a lot of them are changing their pathway because they're really not tied into that pathway, or a lot of them are saying, yes, I do want, or some of them are saying, yes, let me do my request, the transfer request form. And so this is the form that they will be receiving if a student and family wants to pursue their pathway, and that particular pathway is at the different campus that they belong to. Yes, ma'am.
Where does the Cyber Patriot fall in the other slide, the
So
pathways?
Cyber Patriot falls in the IT slide. They're going to be offered, originally it was only going to be at Southwest High School, but that is a program that we, with little effort and resources, we can actually implement at both sites. There will have to be some considerations, probably later on down the road, as to where is going to be like the premier IT kind of academy piece. Kind of like what we're doing at Legacy, we're having a true STEM focus there, whereas we don't have that at Southwest High School. And I think that's going to be part of the big focus. IT is going to be like a major, when we offer dual credit opportunities, but Cyber Patriot can be offered at both places. So,
Which is, it was in the yellow, the information tech class, or that would.
That's under information technology?
so
Okay,
it's offered at both.
okay.
And so this, that we are, right now, our deadline is December 16th, which we've been working on this, and so December 16th is when we were wanting, so that way also we can get more accurate numbers as to where the interests of the students are. And so that is what we're currently working on, and having those individual conferences with the students, and then with parents if they are requesting that.
Can I ask one more question? You said STEM is is Legacy?
Yes, ma'am.
What does that entail? That, like, if there STEM over there, what does that look like?
It'll look like there will be a true engineering pathway. There will be a true advanced manufacturing technology pathway. There will be lots of pathways that are off, even IT in the state of Texas is actually considered under STEM. And so there will be a lot of pathways that are offered at Legacy High School that will not be offered at Southwest High School that are under that STEM umbrella.
Okay, so if I have a child, which I don't, but if I had one at McNair, really into the Cyber Patriots, but also wanting to be in engineering, then I would have to fill out a request to attend Legacy. And what are the odds we're going to approve those requests?
It's going to be dependent on number of seats and, of course, transportation, and that's probably not part of this conversation. But I wouldn't see any problem right now looking at the numbers, and correct me if I'm wrong, Cesar, but we don't have a full-fledged engineering program quite yet where we have mass numbers that are filtering to that. So I don't think that there's going to be an issue with it at all.
And as a parent, do I go on the assumption that I'm providing my own transportation?
Yes.
Okay, because that's what will be asked.
Yes.
Okay, and are we working? What?
Well, they're only one for year one as seniors that will be
Yeah.
transported between.
So we're just going to tell parents, yes, you can apply, you have to provide the transportation, and acceptance is not guaranteed.
Correct.
Okay. All right.
So those are opportunities at Legacy to get some form of workforce certification at the
Yes.
end of the journey. You can still take those courses in advanced math, or you can still become an engineer at Southwest High School. You may not have that pathway.
Oh,
but
okay.
you can still go to
Okay.
college and become an engineer.
All right.
And there are three options under the STEM, and
Afternoon,
presentation,
sir.
as the slide depicts, there will be 4 tiers instead of 3. The conventional, as we're doing right now, middle school, followed by elementary, and then the high schools. Time schedules will be adhered to as we are currently. The exception will be that Tier 3, buses will go to either Southwest High School or Legacy. There will be a tier of buses, approximately 30 buses that will stop first at the closest campus that they serve. We see reduced travel time because they'll be serving their neighborhoods and bringing them into their their closest or assigned high schools. The buses will, for the 3rd tier, again, dropping off approximately 7:50 to 8:20. And that's a reduced time that we experience now, again, because of the proximity of the neighborhoods to the schools. That 4th tier now will mean once that high school tier, that approximately 30 buses drops their legacy kids off, they will then transload the other kids or move those other kids to the Southwest High School for their final stop. We see that currently about 8:20 to 8:45. The second movement is going to be shuttling kids. And a conversation I just had today said that we're looking at somewhere in the neighborhood of 200 seniors that may be moving from Southwest High School to Legacy. Our earliest arriving buses to Southwest High School will be stationed to take those kids. The question is going to be, and again, we're going to have to play this by ear, is when do those other arriving buses bring in those other seniors that are moving? We will we'll have to have a plan where we stage buses as they get a load of students. They will be moved out to the Legacy High School. Next bus, and so on and so forth. They will return, and that we're looking right now. We think that can happen about 8:40 to 9 o'clock. It's approximately a 20-minute drive, and then they will return with those students approximately 12 to 12:30 or somewhere around lunchtime. There's also the issue of that we're grappling with, and that's the movement of special needs kids. Okay, we think that right now, I believe we have about 5 right now. But in our planning, as we begin this coming year, we're looking at moving those kids more than likely directly to their high school, rather than going through a transload process at Southwest High School and carting them over to Legacy. So that's the way we're looking at moving special needs kids. There's a bus allocation chart on this slide. It's kind of busy, but it shows where all our buses are going. And again, we have currently we have 28 going to Southwest, 31 going to Legacy, and actually both high schools. No buses solely going through Legacy. In the coming year, the buses that service both of those schools will then be broken off and simply serve Legacy. So we see about a 50-50 break with our current fleet in servicing both schools.
Thank you, Mr. Bojo. Now with athletics, Coach Brackey?
Hello, everybody. So, Legacy, we plan to open all of our team sports, being football, volleyball, soccer, basketball, baseball, and softball, as JV in 9th grade. And then all of our individual sports, such as golf, track, tennis, swimming, all of those things, powerlifting would all open. They would have the opportunity to compete at the varsity level. Those, for the purpose of that is that if you have a freshman, sophomore, junior that has the ability to, and on an individual basis, has times or whatever it may be to compete at that varsity level, then they have the opportunity to do so. But as a team, we want to build those programs from the base up and give them the best shot at moving forward. When it comes to how do we do this, all of our students are going to be able to apply, first of all, for their academic, where they want to go and how they want to do it academically. So we've already identified those who are legacy, who live in the Legacy attendance zone, but have a pathway that goes through Southwest High School, and also vice versa. They live in the Southwest attendance zone and have a pathway that's going to Legacy. So the counselors and I, we've all worked very well together in this process and trying to get them to decide how they want to go through their educational process before they look into their athletics and all of that kind of stuff. So that was our biggest priority. Now, when it comes to you have a freshman or a sophomore that's going to play varsity in a team sport, okay? And if they go to Legacy, we make them go to Legacy, they lose that opportunity to participate as a member of a varsity sport, go to the playoffs, all that kind of stuff. We didn't want to take that opportunity away from them. So what we are doing is all of our coaches, and freshmen and sophomores. And so we have asked them to give us a preliminary roster of who's gonna make your varsity team next year. And we said that you can have this many kids on each team, give us that roster regardless of their Southwest or their legacy. Now, if we have a kid that is on that roster that is a freshman or a sophomore that is currently slated to go to legacy, then we would talk to them, once they figure out their pathway and everything, we would talk to them about having the opportunity to fill out that transfer form just like our CTE kids and everybody else. They would have that opportunity and then have the choice to come. Again, just like everybody else, they would have to provide their own transportation and things of that nature to be able to get here. Along with that, this goes into some UIL rules with first opportunity. So once, and you have it in your packet, there's a declaration page. So we'll cut off the time to where they have to declare if they're a legacy kid. And to be honest with you, out of all of our team sports, we're talking, at my last count this morning, was 35 kids is what we're looking at right now. So out of those 35 kids, they will have to come talk to us. We'll tell them, explain to them exactly what's going on. They would have to declare. Once they declare, then their residency lies at Southwest High School. And the biggest thing that we put in bold letters in that declaration form is, once you declare your residency next year at the start of the school year, when you declare that residency and you decide you don't like it anymore, then okay, you go back, but you have to sit per UIL rules for 365 days. So if you're going to be a junior, you're a sophomore this year, you're going to be a junior, you decide to stay at Southwest High School, and then you don't like what the coach is doing, or you don't come to school on time, or the principal says that you can't be here anymore, whatever the case may be, when you go back to Legacy, you've lost pretty much your senior year of high school to play. So we will be very clear about those ramifications when it goes through it. The other things, we've already started the weight room ordering process and all of our bid, the things that we need to get going for those things. Questions?
Thank you, Coach. Fine Arts, Mr. Flores?
Our rules are not as complicated as they are for athletics. The students in fine arts will be attending their attendance zone. The exception will be that students who are, of course, their pathway will take precedence. So if they're looking to move because of the pathway is not located at their particular school, then they will do the transfer form, will have to provide their own transportation and so forth to attend for that pathway. Otherwise, they'll just go to the school that they're zoned for. And so we're in that process of establishing all of that. The supplies, furniture, equipment, and all that will not be a last-minute thing like it was for Resnick, so that is already in process as it is now. And we should be getting something to you guys by the January board meeting. And we have already announced the advanced staffing, so that has been taken care of. We are in the process of the big things now, what I call the big things, which is all those community items, like what's the uniform going to look like for the band, and what are the school song and the fight song, and how will the boosters divide, and how will all those big things, and we're going to collaborate with Coach Wagner as far as the booster piece is concerned as well. And first staff is going to meet, and then we will establish a committee that will have stakeholders on it, including parents and students, to kind of advise on these important topics. And that will start happening now in December, and will continue into January as well. Then spirit group auditions will be happening also in late January, early February, and I'm talking about dance, cheer, those groups. And so that's where we stand at this time for the fine arts. Are there any questions? Dr. Brown?
It's going to be good. You know, the boosters will be very supportive, I'm sure.
Yes.
They do like to be involved, as you know, but I know that they'll be very supportive because of the way that y'all have interacted with him in the past years. So I'm certain it's going to work out real well.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Some of the things that we've done besides So it was suggested that we take those students over to Legacy and give them a tour, talk about the programs that are there, try to sell what's there. Beautiful facility, great programs, and so that our students would be well informed before having to make the decision as far as the transfer process. That same day, we invited the parents of those 340-something kids, I believe it was, for a meeting where we gave all this information. Dr. Fay explained the process of how we came to these programs at both Southwest High and Legacy High. And so we went through all of that. Mr. Gonzalez explained in regards to the career pathways, the endorsements, and how we're trying to balance all that out. And we got questions from them, and I think the main thing for that was transportation, and they decided to stay in Greece, so we cleared that up. So those were two very critical pieces of information that had to go out. I think it was good for the students to hear that and for the parents to hear that's in that. November 28th through December 16th, we're going back, and this is what's been happening with the counselors at the high school. They're actually having one-on-one meetings after they've done the freshman presentations, along with the freshman class, where the counselors are sitting down and doing the personal graduation plan and explaining the career pathway. Very, very informative. It's not a 1 to 2 minute type of session. I mean, the counselors are really sitting down and doing the guidance piece, and in some cases taking up to 15, 20 minutes per student, so you can see that the amount of time that this is taking just to give the information out to the students so they will be well informed. The 8th graders, so this week what's happening is that the counselors and Mr. Gonzalez and Mr. Black and I are going to the middle schools and giving that information to the students, to the 8th graders. And then we're going to give a meeting to those 8th grade parents in January. So we have to determine that day in January, but we're going to go out and do that as well. For the staff, besides meeting with individual people or departments and giving information as to where we are and some of the things that we've covered and some of decisions that have been made in this committee, we're going to have a transition information for Southwest High School on December 14th for the 9th grade campus on December 15th, and HR, Mr. Madura, Mr. Black and I will be there to give that information to the teachers as far as the process of the transition with the staff. And so that's where we are right now. Our meetings are being held every Wednesday morning at 7:30 in the morning, and so we just have a lot of dialogue, and so I think at this point we're ready to move forward and actually going out and giving the actual plan of the transition to our students, to our community, and our staff.
Do y'all have any questions?
And just as Ms. Chavera mentioned, there's been a lot of work, individual work with the students on one-on-one, and this slide just gives you a kind of a bullet idea of what we've already accomplished and done. 12th grade, 11th grades have been completed. Those one-on-one sessions have been completed already, and right now we're in the process of doing 10th grade and 9th grade, and also our 8th graders. And so we've had those meetings. Next week we will finalize, and that was just that the committee had to make a decision that we need to find out some numbers, some idea of where are we going to be with our 9th graders and where are their interests. And so we had to move these, and so that's why we're also doing our 8th graders. And so through this week and next week, we're having those assemblies, and we're having that informational sessions with the students so that they can make a selection and give us an idea of what pathways they are interested in for the following year. That way we can make better decisions for that. Yes.
Going to the 8th grade pathway selection meetings, are you allowing, are you all scheduling meetings with the parents also? And also the ones you're having with the students, you said assembly. Are we meeting with 8th grade students, or are we like individually or in small groups, or are we in the cafeteria or the gym telling them about pathways?
Both. We're doing
Okay.
a general assembly, and then the next step is that the counselors are going into their classrooms and actually meeting with the students and doing that and explaining these are the options that you have for your following year as a legacy student. So that we're doing the feeders and presenting those pathways that, for example, Legacy will offer for our students at Resnick and at McAuliffe, and vice versa for the ones that are going to.
And how about the parents?
And the parents parents, that's the meeting that Chavera mentioned, that in January, we're gonna be coming and having those meetings.
With the 8th grade parents?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
And that pretty much concludes our transition update. So do you all have any other questions?
I have one more question. We're meeting with the parents in January. When do they have to declare their pathway, the kids? What is,
By the end, what we're doing in the state law, we have to have them do their PGP or their 4-year plan in the 8th grade prior to going to the 9th grade. And so at those evenings, we will present them based on the information or their pathway selection, that will determine their 4-year plan. And that's what we're going to present to the parents, so that they can verify that, so that they can look over that, and we will have conferences with them at that time, so that they can sign, because we do need a signed PGP or 4-year plan. So that's what we will be doing and taking care of in January.
signed by the parents?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
And I want to clarify something. We had to front load what we're doing with the student side first. It seems almost like we flipped what needed to happen, right? Meet with parents and kids and then let kids decide. Because we need to, we also have to start planning for staffing and
Right,
movement and things like that. And so we get a pretty good baseline of what kids want based on student interest, right?
Right.
And then that final piece comes at the end when we're doing the parent meeting. So I think that it's gonna work out well. But the data will change just a little bit,
Yeah.
but probably not a whole lot.
No, I like the idea of giving the kids the big picture, and then hopefully, not very often in junior high, but hopefully they go home and talk to their parents about it, something, and the parents are a little more informed when they get to come to the meeting. If the parents don't come to the meeting, you just send papers home and ask them to sign it, or what?
Yes, we do, and that's how the rest of the districts do it.
Default. Okay, and so the counselors are gonna be like super busy with the 8th graders. Are they getting any support outside of their, like, not just the counselor, is the VP helping, or how is that working?
Yes, and with the way we have set them up, for example, when we have the conferences, we have a team from CNI that's available, that can go if the conferences are a lot. On those evenings that we will have at the middle schools, we are going to enlist, of course, the help of all the high school counselors
Okay.
and the middle school counselors, so that we come and be supportive to all, because it is gonna be a lot of time with the parents.
And at those meetings, are you gonna have sections set up to, like, oh, I wanna do this pathway, so there's gonna be like a lot of information on, like booths, I don't know,
Right, and that's the
tables,
piece,
whatever.
right, and the details, and those are the things that Mr. Garcia and I will be coordinating and working,
Okay.
so that we have, for questions, if a parent needs to go, so we'll have those, what we call those, like elective fair nights.
Yeah,
So it'll be
so that where they're not all sitting listening to the engineering pathway when they have no desire to go to the, you know what I mean? So they don't lose interest. Okay, all right.
Any other questions?
Anybody?
You know, the group and the staff and all the other folks who are with this, and Mr. Blatt, we were critical of the process to open the doors. You know, when you get to the meetings, you talk about all the kind of fluid moving parts of this. You look back and you think, okay, it's much easier just building it, but now we have to open it. And what we're trying to do, it doesn't matter what we do, we're gonna have thorns, before we get to this road. So year one is gonna be, we're trying to basically have the fewest thorns as possible, but working through these things, prior to the meeting, having conversations, we think it's gonna help the community. There's also a newsletter, We Are Southwest, that should hit home, before we get next week, that also, kind of talks to this. And I know that, our, communications department is putting together a website, Q&A, and that folks can go to and explain what
Good.
we got here, and even further, a little more detail, for those of us who go to social media for, that information.
Right.
There's a lot of stuff, and, you know, you guys are putting in what you want to, and there's a lot of work beyond that meeting that has to be done, so I want to thank you all very much for taking this on, because, we want what's best for our kids, and that's different, it's a kid.
Right.
So we're trying to do the best we can. Okay, great stuff.
All right, moving right along to the audit discussions.
Yes, sir. I have Mike Reese and his team from ABM going to come present on some things that the board asked for the last time they were up to talk to you guys, and really specifically Southwest High School.
Bear with me here.
Probably not. For those that need to go on with your job somewhere else, we'd be glad to have you, but if you'd like to get up and leave now, I'll give you a minute or so.
The best for last.
Run.
I don't blame you.
Leaving too?
I know.
Okay.
Can I go with them?
I'm doing my part, you probably should stay up here to
Oh, yeah.
ask some questions.
Good, thank you.
I'm gonna get my food now. Frank, I have a few seconds.
We already ate.
Oh, come on, don't get butthurt.
I'm old school. I'm old school. Excuse me.
Don't get butthurt, hey. Yeah. Must be because you had such a big.
That must be. Thank you.
5 Wednesdays, I mean, every Monday since it started.
Since last January. I know.
It's because it's behind you.
Bye, thank you.
I am. What? I can't have that.
Well, I cleared out the room apparently. No one wanted to stick around for my presentation. Not the
All
first time
right.
that's happened.
You're up.
Good afternoon. Thanks for your time again. We appreciate it. If you recall, we were here about a month ago and kind of gave you a high-level update on what was going out district-wide. I have some team members here. Mike Galetti is going to be doing a lot of the presenting today and the Q&A. His team is here with us today, and they specifically made the high school a priority in the investment-grade audit process because how it kind of dovetails with a lot of the bond projects that you guys had scheduled there. So from a timing perspective, we made the high school a priority one so that we could have some discussions with the administrative team on what the best approach would be. So today, we don't want to waste your time in going over what we did a month ago, but just a brief recap. The idea of this is that we're going to go out and identify ways we can save money, mostly through utility, gas, electric, water, and also some operational savings. The original number that we had, if you recall, was about $775,000 a year in utilities. Amit is here in the front row. He's actually wrapping up the energy savings calculations, and we think that number is going to be well over $800,000 when it's all said and done. So if you combine that with some obvious operational savings that will happen, we're thinking the annual savings we can drive for the district is going to be somewhere in the neighborhood of $1 million. Again, this is just a brief recap of what's going on, things that are happening district-wide. These are the type of energy conservation measures we're looking at. The one thing we did leave on here, and Mike can speak to this in more detail than I can, the kitchen hoods won't be part of this project because there just wasn't enough run time to justify the capital investment for those in the kitchen areas. So we looked at that, and that was one of the ECMs that really just didn't, the math just didn't make sense financially. So I'm going to turn it over to Mike. We have about 3 or 4 slides specifically on the high school, and Mike and his team have been living here and in all the buildings and doing all the engineering work, so I'm going to turn it over to him at this point.
So a while back, you guys, the district had hired a third-party engineering firm, MEP Engineering, who did an analysis of the high school, an infrastructure analysis of the high school, and came back to the district with recommendations. And the recommendations were both electrical, mechanical, plumbing, fire prevention, and ADA. And what we did is we picked out the line items in their budget that they had given the district and said, okay, what is it that we can affect as part of our project? And that's what you see here. So the electrical line items amount to about $2 million, and these are their budget numbers that they provided the district a while back. So the budget number for electrical that we can affect in our project is about $2 million. The mechanical number in the budget that they gave you that we can affect is about $6 million. So about $8.2 million in total that we can affect as part of our project. So what's included and what's not included? So everything you see is included basically except for the electric hand dryers. And why are the electric hand dryers not included? It's because we were told that that's not a, it was an observation and a recommendation by the MEP engineering firm, but we were told that it wasn't something that you all wanted as part of the program, that you weren't interested in doing hand dryers at the high school. So we've not included it. If it's something you want to go back to, if you look at the overall project, $7.6 million, $36,000 is a small change to do that if you want to go back and do that eventually, but that's been left off this scope. So your 8.2 budget, which should be your 8.2 budget, we're looking at doing for about 7.6. And that also includes one other thing, and that is a little bit easier to describe on the next slide. Here's just some pictures we put in there of some of the aging equipment at the high school, some of the rooftop equipment, the pumps, and the condition we're looking at, and why the recommendations by MEP were to replace this equipment. Not to mention it's 30 years old. So this gives it a little bit better graphical representation. The 8.2 at the left-hand side is what the district budget should be. The $8.2 million for the base budget. But what the engineering firm didn't allow for was about almost $500,000 in pump replacement. So if you're replacing all these units up on the roof, and you're replacing the chillers that make the cold water to pump to those, but you're not replacing the pumps in between, you know, it's a big point of failure. And they didn't include that. So we've said, you really need to do that. So we added the pumps. The pumps would add about $475,000, which really brings your total budget to about 8.6. We can do the 8.6 for 7.6. Then on top of that, what we're looking at doing is the rest of the energy conservation measures, the slide earlier that Mike had shown you. The energy conservation measures, that's the lighting, the building envelope, the refrigeration controls. That's where you save your energy. Because when you change out a package rooftop unit for another package rooftop unit, not a lot of energy savings. There's not a good ROI there. But there are a lot of things we can do in the school that do provide a great ROI. As you can see in the upper right-hand corner, right now we're looking at a very conservative number of approximately $215,000 in energy savings at the high school alone. Over the term of an agreement would be about $3.2 million. That can pay for a lot of stuff. So if you add those together, it's about 8.1 on the 8.6. It's about $453,000 in savings. And if you add the $582,000 for the additional ECMs, your total benefit, the financial benefit to the district, is about $1 million. Does that make sense? Because that's where we usually get questions.
Now, this is just the high school. Are you going to go over some of the other schools? Have you gone through them or not?
We have. We've spent a lot of days, weeks, and months out here going through every one of your schools and looking at all the equipment. We're probably about 75% there, but where our focus was, and what we were told to focus on for this meeting, was the high school, and be able to provide you with budget numbers for the high school. So yes.
Yes. And on the, as far as the engineers that work for the architects, when this deal came up with ABM and they started doing their presentations, we kind of told them to just put them in a holding pattern until we knew what we were going to do with this side before they spent too much more time doing their, so they did their investigation up to a point when ABM came in, and we told them to hold on until they got done.
There's either pumps that the engineers work for architects said that they would leave in place, but they didn't investigate it because we told them that.
Right, we kind of put them on hold to stop investigating until after this was over.
And I think our analysis and our investigation was a lot more detailed and in-depth, and we spent, like I said, we spent weeks and months out here, and I don't think the engineer spent that kind of time to identify the same issues. Yeah. Okay.
Did we know that we were only going to get the high school information today? I think I was under the impression that it was the whole project at this point.
We have the high school project that's coming up that we need to get out
Right.
by certain time to start
Right.
this summer. There's a meeting we need to do at the high school and what we can afford to do based on the available bond funds, there's about an $8 to $9 million variance between the two. We're hoping that, looking at the project, and if we do have the cost savings, that we're able to maybe get toward more completion of the project, maybe not in totality, but more towards where we think we would see a difference architecturally and mechanically. And so we have to concentrate on this because we will be beyond our timeline to start the project this summer if we do the whole project, the whole audit in totality. So yes, this is kind of working with Carr and Fluger, working with the audit here, trying to get as much information as we possibly can within the time frame that we have. Or at some point, we just have to say, let's close that window for this summer and let's just move it on and see what we can do in summer of 2018.
So we're essentially needing to, you're wanting us to make a decision on on just the information for the high school, basically.
I don't think we're going to make a decision. We want to get the board's, I guess, feel on what we're thinking so that we can take this and go back to the architect and kind of work out the plan of what's going to be architecturally, what are we going to do. If we do go down this road, we haven't decided yet.
We're just getting them.
It is a realization of cost savings, and if it is, if we're going to spend those funds anyway, kind of, why not?
So today you're just informing us, we're not making decision today? Okay, thank you. I was concerned, I'm like, oh, do I have to make a decision today?
You got a great question, the timeline. So again, the high school was the focus, and this isn't just engineering. We're actually getting hard pricing from some contractors. So that's all being wrapped up. We should have that done by the end of the month for the entire district.
Okay.
And then we plan to come back and present that to the administration and the board for your guys' review, hopefully in January.
Okay.
And that would be the entire project in its totality.
The next plan for the timeline, I was speaking with ABM and Mike, is to have it maybe come back next brown bag to show you all the actual overall.
The total.
Like another items information. And then determine if we bring it to the board in January or February. We wanted to show you Southwest High School specifically and where they are, and we asked them to move forward with that particular place because we've already kind of got with the board to move forward with the CTE building.
Right.
But we also need to start looking at the actual Southwest High School and determining which path we're going to take and what we're doing in there so that we can work with Fluger to get a plan in place.
For the summer.
Because we are on a very limited timeline, even though we have bond funds available, but we need to be moving forward with those funds and getting things in place. So just to give you an idea.
The $1 million savings then was only for the high school?
Yes, ma'am. Correct. That's, everything you saw today was specific to the high school only. And
The stuff for Southwest High School, what they can do in Southwest High School is, and they're comparing it to MEP that we got from MEP.
Right, correct.
Yeah. From the preliminary MEP that we have, that was based on what the MEP said that they could do, and those are projections. It wasn't like, they didn't bid it out or anything. So just their projection, they're just comparing that projection to their projection.
Right.
On things that they can take care of at Southwest that we had looked at doing with bond funds.
Right, we're trying to get
Correct.
more money. Yeah.
Well, if
Right,
I was
more
gonna
bang
explain
for
this
our
to my wife, or maybe she was gonna explain to me. The two options are, number one, we could go ahead with the bond money we have and purchase it with that bond money and make those changes. And that's one option. And the other option is, and under that option, it would fall under the normal architectural work that Fluger is doing and whatever contractor gets chosen. The other option is we would pull the HVAC and other electrical items out of the Fluger contract, and that ABM would handle that separately, would manage that in coordination with Fluger, and that the purchase of that would be through ABM, and the money would not come from bond money, but would come from borrowing that amount of money from somebody. And so we would, instead of paying the $8 or $10 million lump sum out of the bond money. We're paying it over time. I'm paying interest at a relatively low rate.
And there's even a hybrid of that, those two things where, you know, the option you have, and I don't want to speak out of turn, so feel free to jump in, was the high school still could be addressed using bond money under our program. And the advantage to that is that we discussed where a lot of the things you'll see at the other school campuses are HVAC replacement. And that does not typically have a great return on investment as opposed to, say, moving to LED lighting. So the benefit of that model is, A, you get to use the bond dollars for the high school specifically, and then since you're using bond dollars to pay for that, you don't need the savings at the high school, the $215,000 a year. You can use those savings at other buildings across the district to help pay for those things that need to be replaced, but don't typically have a great payback. So these are things we're going to have some further meetings over the next 2 weeks and talk about how the district wants to proceed financially.
Here's the flip side of that, going back to your option number one, because we could do that without doing anything else. But what happens is, you walk over to the high school, nothing looks different.
Yes.
That's going to be after the $9 million that it looks just like it looks today.
Right. So the value to us is that it allows us to do the architectural improvements as well as the HVAC and electrical lighting improvements at relatively the same time. Because otherwise, we couldn't do both at the same time.
Correct. And in addition to that, we're already spending those funds on energy that we would have a cost savings that we could spend towards equipment.
Yes.
So at the end of the day, if this all works, as I understand it from the onset, is that we'll be spending no more money, but we'll have both of these.
Right. Right.
And we guarantee the savings on an annual basis. We come in and probably account this size probably quarterly and do a verification of the utility bills to make sure the projections are exceeding, hopefully, what our guarantee is. And by the way, you guys keep anything above and beyond our projected savings. That's your money to keep.
The annual projected savings for the district-wide is 775.
Right.
Not $1,036,000.
Correct. That's specifically carrying the MEP estimate to the numbers that we came in at.
District-wide, they're estimating $775,000 savings per year.
Per year for 15 years?
Right. So, and again, if you recall, that number is actually going to be higher probably when it's all said and done.
775 is district-wide?
Yes, sir. So we're probably going to be.
How do we have that since we hadn't even gone to all the schools yet?
Oh, we have.
We have, yes, sir.
Oh, yeah, we spend a lot of time on every one of your.
They've been in the district at every location.
They just don't have it ready for the presentation.
Okay.
So we're still, a lot of this is we have to actually get pricing from subcontractors and pull all that together. These are hard final numbers we're going to be presenting you. But anyway, so I think the total savings, because there will be some operational savings. So for instance, when we do LED lighting, you'll have a 10-year warranty on bulbs and ballasts. You won't have to go out and buy those things for 10 years. So there'll be some savings. You may spend $5,000 a year on bulbs and ballasts. I don't know what that number is. We're going to research that. So there'll be additional savings that are actual accrued and spent dollars in addition to utility savings. Any other questions?
We will come with more information in January, more specific and most likely some form of action item on our high school project. If you recall, what we're trying to do is basically extrapolate the career and tech building and actually do that work this summer and save the bulk of the high school 10-12 campus for the future. Some to be done during the school year, but the hard stuff to be done when the students are there. Is that correct?
Do we have a ballpark, again, I keep asking this, I know, but I keep waiting for an answer. Do we have a ballpark in the totality of the loan that we're going to request for 15 years?
Yeah, outside of the high school. So the balance of the district, we're going to have enough savings to fund, you know, all the different ECMs. We're guessing it's going to be around that $10 million range. And that's separate from the high school.
With a 15-year payment?
What a projected amount of interest that we're going to be paying?
Yep, so those are a lot of the discussions we're going to have over the next 2 weeks because there's many different ways you can do that. There's actually some great federal programs that help actually buy down your interest rate. So we're working with the district right now. Their rate was 1.98%, and we actually, through this federal program, we're getting that bought down 75%. So they're basically, in essence, paying about a half a percent.
Do you know at this time how long our loan will be?
Well, a lot of that's going to be tied to the actual payback of the thing, but usually it's in that 12 to 15-year range. And again, you guys have the option in the future if you want to buy buy it down or buy it out in the future, you're always going to have that option. That's something we always suggest. But again, we're guaranteeing that every year, we're going to be taking money you're already spending with utility providers and using that to pay that off. So, yeah, there's several of those. QZAB's one of them we'll look at. There's some requirements for those things. We have to work with the county and the city to try to grab some of those dollars. There's some really good programs out there. There's also qualified energy conservation bonds, which is another option. So we'll have some in-depth conversations over the next 2 weeks and figure out what's the best approach for the district.
My understanding is too, along the way, after we did go down this road and we agreed to it, that there is a separate, I guess, program where to keep the guarantee that you guys guarantee that you have the cost savings, to pay X amount of dollars.
Right, so and this goes back to everything. Everything that's in the program has to pay for itself out of the savings. That's the cost of the capital, that's the actual equipment you're putting in, that's the design, everything. Part of that is what we call the measurement and verification, and that's for, we bring engineers out quarterly, semi-annually, whatever that is going to be here, to verify and go through and be proactive. Because again, we're a partner in this, and if we don't achieve the savings, we write a check to you guys. So we want to be proactive partners. So yeah, there is measurement and verification that's part of that program.
And that's an annual fee there.
And that's paid for out of the utility savings.
As long as we do that, we have a guarantee, but if we were to say stop that after year 5, then the guarantee kind of ceases.
Right, and that's the district's choice. So some districts, what they do is they go in and they see that it's performing well above the projected savings for the first 3, 4, 5 years, and they say, hey, we really don't need to spend 30 grand a year on, or whatever that number is, on engineers coming in to verify it. We're comfortable with it. And then you guys will drop those dollars back to your bottom line. So that's the district's discretion and how comfortable we are with how the program's run.
Everyone be aware, as long as we have that agreement with you in that aspect, we have that guarantee.
Oh, yes, sir.
If we stop it, that guarantee.
Yep.
It's like insurance.
And I just want to clarify one thing, because I think there some of the comments I've heard exactly right. There's the number, he's going to pull the slide back up, the 9 million is showing us for the high school.
Right.
And then on top of that, there's probably basically double that for the rest of the district. So it's not a $10 million loan you're taking out, it's a
20, okay.
Well, unless it's paid for.
Unless you use the bond dollars for the high school. And again, those are some of the things we
I
do
just
for
want
you.
to make sure that we're not thinking it's just one $10 million in the whole district, that's just on high school.
Thank you, Thomas, yes.
And it always was. I mean, that's nothing new about that.
Does that mean gentlemen, does that mean we give you a credit card and you go out and take care of this out of that account? How does that work?
It's like a construction process. We're paid upon substantial completion of certain phases. So when the lighting is done at a certain campus, there's it's very similar to a construction process.
So why do we have to borrow the money to begin with?
You don't have to. And that's why we said we even discussed using bond dollars for the high school portion of it.
The thinking is that borrowed money is so cheap right now that you can use your bond money for emergencies or other projects that you may want to do. But using bond funds is an option that the board has.
But we're trying to get more bond money into finishing the high school,
For the
right?
construction.
We want, what did you say again?
We will come with
About using bond money for the
about 3 or 4 different options that we can look at and make them up a hybrid from this list. But using bond funds is an option.
And if I understand correctly, if I heard at one time, if we do the loan route, it's a year before the first payment's due, and we've already realized a year of savings.
Traditionally.
Traditionally.
Depends on your lending institution, but traditionally it's a year.
Payment will come out of money that we would have paid to CPS, SARS,
Right.
et cetera.
But also that works with the actual construction phases still too.
Correct. And one of the things, some of these things will have to be done over spring break, summer break, but some of the things like lighting, in fact, we started at Ysleta ISD nights and weekends because lighting drives your savings the quickest. So you guys start realizing savings the quickest. And there's also, Amit did some research on the rebates from your utility provider, and there's going to be some pretty substantial rebates that you guys will get as well. And those are traditionally on a first come, first serve. So we don't want to miss out on any rebates we can get for you guys as well.
And just to clarify, I get a little bit confused. The 20 million includes only the updates to the electrical and all that. It does not include the construction at the high school.
Yeah,
The 20 million is just for the stuff we can't see.
Because the 20 million is district-wide, so this
Okay.
program for district-wide conservation.
Okay, conservation, right, okay.
7,760,000
Mhm.
at the high school is what that includes, and that's for the, those are the things that's basically we looked at in the bond. That's just for the high school, and then you add, we don't know for sure the number, but 10 to 12 more
For the rest of the district, got it.
the day, that was phase one, the high school construction.
Correct.
Okay, understood.
Because you're saying that you're gonna bring to us the elementary, later in January, how can you assure us that that's the whole amount district-wide? I mean, are the numbers gonna change between now and then, once you do the elementaries and give us a presentation on that?
Right, the energy calculations are about complete, so we've been through all those buildings, and we've, looked at how long your lights run and calculate energy savings based upon things like that. So right now, we're wrapping all that out and putting that together. We've been in every campus, so we don't expect that to change at all. We want to have a total, complete package for you before we present it to you.
Okay. You know that $800,000 number may go up. Because discovering things, there are a lot of opportunities to save operationally and utilization across all these schools, especially the middle school actually, have a lot of opportunities.
One of the concerns when we originally started down this road was, okay, that's great, but at 4 o'clock, is every one of our campuses, every other light going to go off, and is the AC going to go down, and will people be able to work beyond the normal school day? And so those are things that we would work out along the way
Yep.
here, that we want our building to, AC to stay on.
Right, we're not proposing behavioral changes, we're not asking people to wear a sweater in the winter, and, so those are all be defined, and we'll have collaborative, we can show you, hey, if we have your set points of this is what it means to you in savings, and if you want to have more leeway, then this is what it costs.
We have given ABM kind of our standard daily.
Our norms.
Schools and where our.
It's calculated off that.
Oh, good.
Yeah,
As a matter of fact, savings for scheduling are not even accounted for that 18,000, these are above and beyond. So the scheduling savings are gonna be on top of the number that we reported. But there are other measures outside this, scheduling that will add up to that.
So I think as a entity, we have to be careful too, when we look at this, set in the future, we'll look at our CPS bill, because we're bringing on Legacy High School, residents, came on this year. So it's going to be hard to say, here's X in 3 years, it's still
Mhm.
X. So we have to remember that we're going to have to concentrate on this area and this guarantee, and then when we look at the savings, we only look at that area and that guarantee.
Yeah, we're going to build a baseline on a per building campus.
Oh,
So
good.
you guys you'll get reports on that. And again, being able to proactively track things is the best way to do that, because you don't want to wait to the end of the year and look at your bills and figure out there's a problem. We want to proactively figure out, why is this campus using more electricity, and go solve that problem instead of waiting until you've already spent the money. So,
But to make it simple, Mike, in a conversation I had with Mr. Chris, I said, well, how much do we spend annually on CPS and PS committees? This is a big number, close to $3 million. So what we're saying is, after completion of this project, if all things remain the same, we basically, our new electricity bill will be $2.2 million.
right. And again, we are guaranteeing consumption. So CPS could come to you and raise your rate. We don't have any control of that.
Right.
So, but those units then extrapolate into a financial budget. So, and you guys are, I guess, unfortunate because your rate's pretty high from a kilowatt per hour perspective. You can't do much about that, but that does afford you, the savings we drive here has a fairly big financial impact, which then you can turn around and invest in the building. So, for instance, we're undergoing a project in El Paso, and they're paying about half what you guys spend per kilowatt hour. So the savings there have a less of a financial impact because it isn't as big a budget number once you translate it to dollars.
Dr. Versif, I just had what I'd like to share with you, that where I've seen efforts like this become difficult is sometimes it's not so much in the concept or content, but the way that it's supported, meaning it's not really supported by the engineer, and maybe district personnel don't really are on board, and we don't really have the right coordination. So I was going to say that one of the things I would like to see as we move forward is the verbal commitment by our own construction personnel, and for them to tell us, we've looked at it, we think we need to move forward with that, as well as yourself. I say also the architect, because you can really get into trouble if you're architects, and I'm talking about, I know they don't have anything to do with this, but there's got to be some coordination, and we are kind of taking something away that they plan to do, so I'd like to see their commitment on this. And the last thing is that I always think there needs to be a pretty strong owner representative that is representing the owner's interest as we move forward. We typically will throw that into somebody like Thomas or somebody's bailiwick. We just got to make sure that he's got enough support, whoever our owner rep is, to be able to dedicate some time to this, because this will take some time to understand it, particularly when we try to look at what are our savings.
Thank you for that. I can tell you to date, Dr. Byram, we have included our architect, Carr and Dan, in conversations, and we've shared some information. I know that they will be at the next meeting to start calculating these things. When we asked them kind of their thoughts, they were intrigued by the opportunity to get into it and look at the data. And so we will do exactly as you said. We'll record that.
We have also met with our HVAC techs and our maintenance group with Joe Trejo and them. They've sat and talked to ABM and make sure they've asked our opinion on types of equipment and things like that we would prefer to have and what we'd like to stay away from. So that portion has been done, at least from the district side.
That's very good, because that's usually where it falls apart, is where the owners, technicians get involved. And
there's still going to be more of that coordination to go on, but we have done initially phase first part.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, and we're not putting anything in here that has a useful life less than the project itself. So you have HVAC equipment that we fully expect, and you guys have done a great job in maintaining what you have out there currently. Like I said, we saw pictures of stuff that's 33 years old and still running.
So it's long-term equipment.
Oh, yes, yeah, there's nothing in here that will be less of a useful life than the project itself. In fact, again, we know you guys take good care of your equipment, and that's the key to it, right? We can come in and do the project, but if the predictive and the preventive maintenance doesn't happen to it, you don't get that useful life, and your maintenance team does a very good job of that, as evidenced by how long some of this equipment's been sitting on top of the roofs.
And just to add to what you were saying, Keith, is I've been involved with these people for about a year now in a couple other districts, and I am extremely confident in this group. Not so much, well, ABM overall, but in this group that we're working with. And in fact, I'm going to try and bring Isleta, we're going to try and bring Isleta superintendent, maybe a board member, down to visit with some of us and hear what's going on. I mean, their project's a little larger than ours, huh?
Yeah, they're probably gonna be about 60 million over when it's all said and done.
Are they about the same areas we are at now, or have you already started that project?
We've actually started implementation of the project. So we're actually in the buildings, putting in LED lighting starting this week.
What % of implementation would you say you're at?
Oh, it just started. It literally just started last week. So, but yeah, there's other, references we can connect you guys with as well.
And we're looking at we're real close to working with a couple other districts who are the same thing. And it's going to kick fire. I'm excited of the opportunities that we have for this. Having those additional funds to put in other places.
It really makes sense when you look at it on paper. I think what we have to do is, and I hear what Dr. Byram saying is, we want a clear recommendation, or we want some form of, do we believe this is going to do what it says it does? And I think sitting down, they've been very, what I understand from the Thomas, been very upfront about the information and the data, and so I think we're at a good place, I think, moving forward. We just have to get there. I think from the onset we said, it's going to be in the numbers that we have to show our board, convince you guys that this is what we say, this is what we're going to look at, and this is how we're going to measure it along the way to show that savings. You guys have been just great to work with right here. So thank you for that.
Yeah, thank you. We'll talk about the next meeting, yeah. Okay, any other questions? Thank you, guys. Appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Mr. Superintendent, what else do you have?
Sir, I'd like to cordially invite you on Dr. McAndrew's behalf to attend the district
I already got it.
festivities today.
I was like, ooh,
I'm going to be at
fancy.
Region 20. I have a RAC meeting, but I'm going to try to get there as soon as possible. And there will be across... Today? Tomorrow?
He said today.
Across the walkway here at the Annex Gym is the district kind of Christmas gathering lunch. What time is that?
It's 11:30 to 1:30, but we're going to kind of dawdle. So Dr. Verstup gets there, so.
And I did not meet today since it's already passed.
Right, you did not, you did not.
And then Thursday, special board meeting at Legacy High School. What time? 11:30. We're going to have lunch, and then there'll be a tour of the facility of Rafael Barajas. We're going to take them along. There'll be senior staff and the board, and maybe people like Celia Garcia, a few others who join us to talk about CTE. And we'll do the whole high school, the sports facility, because the press block is not done, but you can definitely walk through it, get an idea of what's up.
Are we leaving here at a certain time? Is it 11:30 from here?
We thought we would just meet at Legacy High School.
You're not taking a bus? No, I'll get directions on how to get there.
Would you like to arrange a bus?
I don't know, I just figured that's what you were gonna do. It don't make any difference to me.
Well, we would like senior staff there, because we're gonna be senior staff there, we'd like to meet there because I have, you're meeting the senior. One of the top 10 dads.
Oh, all right.
We'll already be there.
Okay.
So we'd have a bus pick you all.
At 2 on Thursday.
Unless I'm fine. Nobody else is talking but me. Y'all want a bus?
I'll pick you.
Are you good, were you able to get the box thing?
Well, what I was able to do.
He wants us to go to Fox Tech afterwards.
Oh, I
So
can't
we
make
can go over there.
So that's right after the lunch.
So we would need to take our cars and leave them there, or,
What time will we be back? Because I have to take my niece somewhere. 5.
Oh, definitely.
yeah, we should be back. A couple hours, right?
If we leave on time, we should be able to come back, but we need to leave.
So we should probably leave from here, and that wouldn't necessitate a bus. That way we don't have our cars all the way over there. He can, transport us and then bring us back here, and our cars are here.
We'll have Suburbans to pick y'all up, to take y'all over there. and take
Okay.
y'all over
What time should we be here tomorrow?
on
I mean Thursday, I'm sorry.
Thursday, we'll pick you up at 11:15.
Okay,
This meeting
we'll be here.
starts at 11:30.
Okay.
I have 3 people coming. So count me as 3.
Who's coming? Matt?
Mac and Linda.
Awesome.
First time I ever got her to come to anything.
Byron.
What? What did he tell me?
Are we through?
Oh, he's already out the door.
I know you did.
We're done, sir. 11:15.
All right, we're adjourned at 1:27.